Welcome to Valiant Guardian Ministries. This is lesson number 7, and we're specifically going to do lesson number 5 of the Valiant Guardian Ministries mini-series. Today, we are talking about strength. You may be asking, what is Valiant Guardian Ministries? Well, I am glad you asked. Valiant Guardian is a modern discipleship approach to old school Sunday school that bridges the gap for all generations. We focus on spiritual disciplines, classical virtue, and traditional values, helping people love God with their heart, soul, mind, and strength. Through lessons, devotionals, and practical resources, we make timeless formation simple, relevant, and accessible for everyone. For this mini-series in Valiant Guardian Ministries, we've been talking about Mark 12:30, where Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." And we've been going specifically through each one and kind of determining what each aspect means. And so we've already done heart, soul, and mind, and today we're going to do strength. So just the context of this verse. In Mark 12:30, there's different lawyers, the Pharisees, and they come up to Jesus and they're trying to stump him with questions to try to show that he is not all that he says he is. He keeps answering well, and so one thoughtful man says, "What is the greatest commandment?" And Jesus says in Mark 12:30 and 31, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There's no other commandment greater than these." When he says that, the lawyer realizes he's answered well, but beyond all that, we see kind of the focus of what it means to love God and what our whole focus of being human is. It's to be loving God with everything. And so we're going to specifically talk today about what it means to love God with your strength, aka your physical body. This kind of goes on to several different nuances, but today we're going to specifically focus on your actual physical strength, your health, your which includes your hormonal health or your nutritional health and your physical appearance. You need to steward your physical body correctly. That's the bottom line. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you need to make sure you're stewarding what God's given you. Just as you would steward your emotions, just as you would steward your finances or your intelligence or whatever, you need to steward your strength. You need to eat correctly, you need to work out, and do some other minutia. Now, I want to make a very clear stance here because it's going to be necessary for what we talk through in the future part of this lesson. Your gender is defined by God, by the Spirit. It is not defined by how you feel. It is defined by how God anatomically made you, if you have the faculty to create sperm or ovary. Those are what determine your gender. Now, some people may ask, what if they're born with different, your XY chromosomes or your hormones or whatever. At the very basis of each of those instances, there's only one possible way that they can create sperm or egg. Someone cannot become self-pregnated. It is impossible for someone to produce both. So that is what we look at as gender, and there may be specific nuances, but as a whole, that is completely and utterly the truth. There's two genders. There's male and female. If something isn't quite right, it's not a third gender. It is a misprinting of one of those two. The God-given differences between the genders should also be considered and strengthened. So there are two genders, and there are strengths and weaknesses with both genders. Being a different gender doesn't just mean the only difference is that we can produce one part of the baby or the other part of the baby. There are physical things that correlate within humans to gender ideology. Unlike virtue, there is no such thing as too much strength. Strength is actually in the middle. Weakness would be on one side, it would be the deficiency, and then vanity would be on the opposite side. Strength itself is not polarized. It's about capability. If one is weak, they are not capable. If one is strong, then they are capable. Now, another disclaimer, just as there are those who are not capable intellectually, I know there are those who in this life are suffering from physical incapability. Allergies, disabilities, and other types of physical brokenness are struggles that are real. My following comments are specifically for those who have the ability but do not do it. So what does that mean? Big picture. I understand there are some people who have different disabilities. There's some people who may be paralyzed. There's some people that may be missing limbs. There may be people that have genetic issues that cause them to not be able to use their body correctly. Even with those people, I would still say that you should honor the Lord with your strength, with your body. But the majority of what I'm saying here and the push and the challenge that I will be giving are for the people who who can completely use their body to honor the Lord, but then they choose not to. Now, I want to be clear about the excess. So the excess of physical strength is not being too strong. The excess is being vain. It's when you start to focus solely on strength. If you focus all your time just on strength, you're missing the other three aspects of your body. And the reality is very few times would you ever need to have that level of strength. Now, if God's called you to it, that's fine. But as a whole, you want to move away from vanity. And at the other side, there is a deficiency, and the deficiency are when people are too weak or they're too fat. Um, if those are the cases, if you're vain or if you're useless, that is both vice and that is both incorrect, and that is not what God would want. Don't find your personal value in your unhealthiness in either way. If you're right now, there's this whole support of body positivity, and that's ridiculous. Body positivity does not care for the individual. It only cares about not hurting people's feelings. There are so many people who are unhealthy and who will continually go to a destructive path, not even in the eternal life, but in the physical life. If you are unhealthy, you will get sick. If you are unhealthy, you will cause heart problems. If you are unhealthy, you will be useless. All those things are real. So body positivity is fine if people are working and doing the best that they can and are showing their body in a way that honors the Lord. But if it's outside of that, it's not a helpful thing. It is a damaging thing to each individual to say that the problems that you struggle with are not problems. And the other way, the people who idolize their body, that is an issue. If people idolize their strength, if people idolize their routine at the gym, that is an issue. You have to find that middle. You want to be strong and capable for the Lord, but you don't want to worship the creation, worship the creator. And you don't want to neglect the creation in making yourself as the creation what is worshipped. The sweet spot, again, is capability. The more capable you are, the better. The more strong you are, the more capable you will be. Capability is what honors the Lord. If you are out of shape, you are not capable, that doesn't honor the Lord. So here are some verses kind of talking about that. 1 Corinthians 16:13 in the ESV, I like this translation the most. It says, "Be strong, act like a man." Joshua 1:9, we see it says, "For have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous?" What a lot of people don't realize is those two verses are actually connected. The Greek, the Septuagint, so the Greek translation of the Old Testament, which is what all essentially the New Testament writers would have used, all the New Testament people would have read. It says in the Greek Septuagint, Joshua 1:9, "Be strong, act like a man." It's the exact same phrasing as 1 Corinthians 16:13. So because of how we translate everything, it's a little bit different because our modern translations usually use the Hebrew and Septuagint to reinforce what the Hebrew says rather than using the Septuagint for both. Um, because of that, 1 Corinthians 16:13 does not mirror Joshua 1:9 unless you look at the Septuagint translation. With that being said, you have to understand the fear of the Lord causes you to have strength. And I would say if you look at the root word of what it means to be empowered by the Holy Spirit, it says that they had dynamis power, dynamis, dynamic, dynamite, that very, very boldness. I don't think that's just spiritual or even just an emotion, but I think that what comes from that is true strength. I think if you want to be a man, that means you need to be courageous in day-to-day life. To be courageous is to be strong. And then in Judges, we also see the value of strength in Scripture. When you see Samson, Samson is given supernatural strength. There's never an honor in the Bible for the overweight or the weak. Now, it says, in our weakness, he is made strong. Absolutely. And that is true. But God does not call people into victimhood. There are cosmic obstacles that God allows in our path We have to have faith in him. And even the strong men couldn't do what they do without the Lord. So if you're weak, it should be because God's put you into a place where you're not able to use your strengths. It's not because when you had the capability to do something, you didn't do anything. We need to be strong. We need to be capable, but we need to make sure we're doing that in the right way. Now, I will say physical strength is not my area of expertise. You may look at me and think, this guy is not huge. This guy is not ripped. That's fine. And that's fair. However, just because I'm not the expert doesn't mean that I can't talk on it, because I have done research. I've done the best that I can, but just know that. So my point in saying that is not to disqualify me from talking about this, but it's to say that some things that I say are from the research that I've looked into, and that research could be debated. So just take it for what it's worth. There are going to be people that have a higher area of expertise than I do. And if something I say uh, differs with another expert, definitely consult the expert. Practical strength training should be focused on functionality rather than hypertrophy. When you focus on hypertrophy, that's that whole idea of I have to have really big muscles. I have to, the whole, uh, really big. It has to be all of those things, and that's all vanity. Uh, it's If you look back in the ancient times, most people didn't work out. Well, at least I've never heard of someone intentionally working out just to work out. It's because everyone was active. It was part of life to be outside, to be outdoors, and to work. Working out is what we have to do because we have such sedimentary lifestyles. It's how we counter our sedimentary states. However, because we're trying to counteract our sedimentary states, our mindset is not, oh, we need to do what we need to in order for our bodies to work the right way. Our thought processes go towards, we need to look a certain way and be really cool, whatever is trendy. And that's not honoring the Lord. Workouts should focus on strength training, cardio, hit, and mobility and joint. Those are the 4 major aspects that I've been looking into. A quote that I found while researching, I believe it's from Conor McGregor, but it's the idea of machines don't use machines. And I personally like that. I don't like using machines. I personally like as little as possible of being in an actual gym. I like calisthenics. I like doing hard physical labor in order to try to have my strength. But just keep that in mind. If you're trying to go for a functional workout, you want to kind of move away from machines, because machines are going to hyper focus on specific muscles, which may keep you from having true functionality. Now, some people may be asked, what is strength training workouts? What are some examples? So squats, lifting weights, and push-ups. When you do squats, those are self-explanatory. Lifting weights, barbell, all those things, and then push-ups. These are just a few easy ways to do strength training. Another really helpful one are cardio workouts. So this is jogging, stair climbing, biking, those kind of things. Anything that gets your heart rate moving. Now, HIIT workouts. HIIT is high intensity interval training. And so it's this idea of kind of like running sprints. It's super fast paced. It's going super hard, and then stopping and then doing it again. And what that does is it shoots your heart rate up, which sounds scary, but it's not. Because you're doing it in a healthy way, it actually allows your overall heart rate to go way down and stay at a lower level. Some of these workouts could look at like tire flipping, like heavy tires, sprinting, and using a sledgehammer super hard for a certain amount of time. And the 4th one are mobility workouts. And these are super specific. So if you have knee pain, you can do specific workouts to help your knee. If you have elbow pain, or if you have, whatever joint it is, these mobility workouts will essentially add muscle to where you may find pain, and it takes the pressure off the joints. And so what, joint pain usually is, and I could be wrong, it's when there's nothing in between. You should have cartilage, but at times it can be worn down or whatever. You want to make sure that you have a little bit of cartilage, but if you don't, you can have your muscles pull these back just a little bit. And when you pull that back, it'll help relieve the pain, because the muscles are taking a little bit of the strain. Now, for all of you who are here, I put together a Valiant Guardian strength plan. I named it very creative, I know. But I like routine, so I like to do the same thing, more or less every week, every day, and that helps me be consistent. It helps me stay in the same rhythm. Some of these Valiant Guardian strength plan, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What I personally do is I flip a heavy tire, I drag the tire, and then I use a sledgehammer nonstop for as long as possible. So it's a lot of heavy weight, it's a lot of hit, and yeah, essentially those two. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I run a mile as fast as possible, and then I do stair sprints, and then I do max push-ups in a minute, 1 minute break times 5. So 5 sets, you do as many as you can for a minute. Um, Now I'll be honest, while starting all of this stuff up, the workouts has gone to the back of my mind. And that is a fault of mine. And that's something that I need to do better. But I feel like it's necessary to share this to say that I'm not perfect and you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be trying. Trying is what I think really honors the Lord because we're not perfect. He doesn't expect that from us. But if we do what we can, uh, I think we honor him. Oh, excuse me. And then Light Saturday, or on Saturday, do light cardio. And so some people will do some sort of martial arts, like low impact, or some people will run or walk or whatever, go hiking. Just things that keep the heart moving, but isn't necessarily a workout. And then have a complete rest day. And some people may trade this Sunday, Saturday, whatever. Have a complete rest day. Okay, we're going to talk about weight. So I've already probably stepped on some toes, and if you're still here, great. Um, but specifically for men, if you are more than 25% fat, then you are considered obese. And that's not me, that's not just my opinion. That is according to Healthline. It's what doctors would consider obese. To be fit, you should aim for being below 18%. Now, for women, the obese rate would be considered 32% fat, and you should aim to be below 25, according again to Healthline. Now, I want to challenge people, specifically men right now, to be better than just what is absolutely necessary. If we are going to be Christians, I think we need to be the exemplar as much as possible. We need to be intentional about trying to show the world what it looks like to honor the Lord. With that being said, I think it would be great to have 12 to 14% body fat as a man. And if you want to know what that looks like, here's a chart that you can look at. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I pause it if you want to look at it longer. And then for women, I'm challenging you to be between 18 and 22%. And here's your chart. Now again, disclaimer. I understand there are those with genuine and valid reasons to why they have the weight that they have. I'm stating for general individuals. I also understand I am not the final word. So if you are doing whatever and you start to drop weight and, you start to get sick or get unhealthy and your doctor says, well, you need to do whatever, listen to the doctor 100%. This is just the research that I've found. This is broad strokes, general statements. When losing weight, keep two things in mind. Don't do drastic, extreme dieting, and think about long-term change. So kind of two sides of the same coin. But don't be drastic. A lot of people will get motivated. The Rocky music comes on and they're ready to go, and those are great. But you want to be careful that you're not instantaneously thinking, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in a week. That's not realistic. But what people will do is that they will try to do these crazy diets and will try to do these crazy workouts, and they'll get sick and they'll hurt their bodies. You need to make uh, minimal change over a long period of time. Someone told me it this way: if you aim to lose 1 pound a week, so what's the significance about losing 1 pound a week? Most people can do that, which is super helpful, but it allows you to make sustainable small changes. So if I told you tomorrow you're only allowed to eat potatoes, it's not going to go well. You're not going to enjoy it. It's going to not feel good. It's going to be unhealthy. You're going to feel gross. But if I told you, hey, tomorrow, stop drinking one type of soda or dark sodas. Let's do that. Let's stop drinking dark sodas. So really, really high, minimal change. When you do that, you may lose a pound. And then next time, hey, let's cut out eating chips. Let's cut out, and you just kind of cut out one thing at a time. And what you do is it forces you to learn to eat better, but it is sustainable. Most people will do these drastic diets, and even if they are successful and they can do it, they'll instantly undo all their progress when their diet's over and gain all the food back. That's what you don't want to do. Think long-term change. If you lose 1 pound for every week in 2 years, you would be down 100 pounds. Now, I'm going to be a little strong here, but it's not it's the Lord. Because this is what the Bible has to say about people who are gluttonous. Proverbs 23:20 and 21. It says, "Be not among drunkards or among gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the gluttons will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags." Proverbs 28:7. "The one who keeps the law is a son with understanding, but a companion of gluttons shames his father." Philippians 3:19. "Their end is destruction, their God is their belly, and they glory in their shame with minds set on earthly things." Titus 1:12-13. One of the cretins, a prophet of their own, said, "Cretins are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. Therefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith." The reason I say that is just so that you know it's not just me saying, oh, you shouldn't be overweight. It is biblical. Again, disclaimer, I understand there's people who can't necessarily control that because of different dietary issues or thyroid issues or whatever. I'm just specifically saying for those of you who can, do what you can. Let's talk about nutrition. So we talked about physical health. We're going to go through nutrition now, and then we have 2 others that we'll go through. Nutrition, there's really 4 major things that you want to add into your diet or keep in your diet. So protein, carbs, fats, and vegetables. That is really everything you could want. You just have to figure out how to get it the right way. So vitamins is kind of what we're thinking here. Nutrients and vitamins. We're thinking, what kind of things do we get out of the food that we eat? The more processed the food, the less likely there's going to be actual nutritional value. Now, you can still get nutritional value out of worse foods, but you're probably going to get a high amount of saturated fat or specific pieces that aren't necessarily going to be overall conducive to having a efficient, healthy lifestyle. So let's talk specifically about protein. What are some good options that have high protein? So eggs, salmon, and other fish, but I like salmon, beef, chicken, Greek yogurt, and organ meat. So if you can have those things. Now, specifically, this is a weird fact. I don't know why this is. If you can find wild versions of whatever you're trying to eat, that will have more protein, and usually it'll be a little bit healthier. So if I go to the store and buy a turkey, specifically even like a cheaper turkey, the likelihood is that it's not going to have a huge amount of protein compared to if I was to shoot a turkey while I'm hunting. A turkey in the woods is going to have a higher amount of protein. Try to have a wide range of dark and light meat. Here I specifically said beef and chicken because it's just the easiest things. But, if you can have buffalo or bison or turkey or what have you, rabbit, all those things are very packed with protein, and they bring a little bit of differences with the nuances of nutrition. So it's fun. You can definitely branch out with that. From those things that I listed, however, here are the vitamins and the nutrients that you'll get. You'll get A, D, E, K2, B12. Uh, you'll find nutrients that help your colon. You'll have healthy fats, omega-3s, selenium, iron, zinc, creatine, B vitamins, lean protein, calcium, potassium, probiotics, folate, and copper. Now, specifically, I want to say if you're going to do something like carnivore, if you're going to do keto, you want to be very intentional that you have organ meat of some kind or a supplement of organ meat, because organ meat is where you get a lot of these nutrients that pure meat doesn't give you. The reason why people, the hippie mindset of people who, eat the entire animal and who don't let anything go to waste, it's because they're pulling out those nutrients that you don't get in just the rest of the body. They do well because they're actually utilizing the resource that God created in those animals. Carbohydrates next. So some options that are really helpful: sweet potatoes or potatoes, oats, fruits, rice, and quinoa. And the nutrients you get if you eat those: vitamin A, C, potassium, slow carbs, magnesium, uh, B vitamins, soluble fiber, potassium, antioxidants, and magnesium. When we get to fats, fat is healthy. You should have fat. Notice that I didn't say you should have 0% fat or you should have 6% fat. You should still have anywhere between 12 and 14% fat, because that's actually how you fight off sickness. It's actually a little bit of insulation. There are benefits to having fat. However, you want to have healthy fats, not like overly saturated fats. But here are some of the options. You can have avocados, olive oil, nuts, and seeds. Those are things that will bring you healthy, sustainable fat. If you eat those, you'll get vitamin E, K, potassium, healthy fats, anti-inflammatory, zinc, magnesium, and selenium. And vegetables. So if you just eat spinach, broccoli, carrots, and bell peppers, you're going to get A, C, K, folate, iron, fiber, antioxidants, and then beta-carotene. That's a lot. There's a ton of ingredients that I just listed. So I wanted to give you some options and ideas for meals. There's a lot of ways that you can incorporate all 4 parts of those elements into your day-to-day life. And so some ideas are like salmon bowls, breakfast scramblers, steak and sweet potatoes, chicken and oat soup, Greek yogurt parfait, stir fry. If you have 2 of those, I'm pretty sure, almost can guarantee that you will have all those nutritional aspects if you can just have 2 of those a day. And then snack, because everyone likes snacks. Eat vegetables, eat fruits, nuts, seeds, jerky. The more natural you can be, the better. And for me personally, I like routine. So the base of my meal is eggs for breakfast, white meat for lunch, so like fish or chicken or turkey or something like that. And then, or very, very lean ground beef. And then for dinner, I usually have red meat or like a darker meat. So beef, pork, uh, stuff like that. Something that I want to kind of just encourage you with: try to shop around the grocery store. So on the outside of the grocery store, anything that's really in a fridge is going to be your friend. If you have something like potted meat, for example, the nutritional value of that's probably going to be pretty low just because it's so processed. Uh, Try to go to the grocery store, get cheese, get beef, get fruits and vegetables. The frozen part may be okay, just be careful. If you're getting stuff like frozen berries, that's probably fine. But if you're getting a frozen pizza or something that comes in a box, that's probably something I would avoid. Try to remove processed foods. For me, at my heaviest, I weighed 225 pounds. I'm currently right about 192. And so, and at my healthiest, I was at 187. When you eat clean, you will just lose weight. It's because there's all these extra things that are added into processed foods that your body stores that it doesn't necessarily need. And so, if I have a bunch of saturated fat, it's just sitting there. It's not benefiting me in any way. It's not going to help me if I get sick, but it can burn off eventually if I need it. And that's why you have to work out super hard. That's why you have to eat minimally, is to burn off that saturated fat. But if you just are intentional and you try to eat raw vegetables, eat very unprocessed foods, meat or whatever, all those extra pieces aren't going to be there. It'll help you lose weight just because you're not adding a supply of unnecessary things. Now let's move on to hormonal health. Your hormonal health is vitally important. And I'm going to say this because I feel like if I don't, a bunch of dudes are going to check out. Hormonal health is vital for men and women. Practices that will keep your hormone levels in a healthy range. So if you sleep well, if you lift heavy, you do the hunter-gatherer type with your food. So if you can forage it, so kind of mushrooms, berries, and then actual hunting, kind of that idea again of eating on the outside of the grocery store, that'll help maintain healthy weight, sunlight, and stress management. It is unhelpful that the more you weigh, the more you're going to have opposition. You don't, you overall become a little bit weaker. Your cardio is harder. Your hormones are against you. All the things that happen when you're overweight, And so you have to do this uphill battle. So I understand the difficulty of it, and I want to encourage people, one, start to make intentional changes, and don't just think about you, but think about legacy. If you eat well, if you're intentional, if you are helping, if you're working out consistently, don't that helps your children, and it builds patterns for your children. So you may be overweight and you may have all these issues, but if you can be intentional and teach the next generation who teaches the next generation, in a couple of generations, you're going to have very healthy and very uh very physically healthy on a hormonal and physical level, just because you put patterns into place. So just think of it in that light. Be intentional about your health so that your family can be healthy. Here are some things to avoid because they just screw up hormonal health in a massive way. So avoid pornography, alcohol, excess alcohol, junk food, chronic stress, undersleeping, living sedentary, and then high sugar intake, constant dopamine spikes. We'll get into dopamine in a second, but just try to remove doom scrolling. Try to remove dopamine drips so that you're not relying and living off of it. Here are some of the more major hormones. There's tons more, but these are kind of the focus and that we'll get into just so you can kind of get an idea and see the impact of what they do. So there's dopamine, adrenaline, oxytocin, serotonin, DHT, norepinephrine, melatonin, cortisol, and then we'll go into a couple others. So dopamine. What does dopamine do? Dopamine drives motivation, ambition, the pursuit and focus. It creates the reward sensation. It renews habits and behaviors. It helps with movement, attention, and learning. So ultimately, it's your driver. It's why you want to do things. If you don't have a lot of dopamine, you'll start to get lethargic. And if you have too much, you'll get addicted tendencies. So things that have addictive qualities, so alcohol, drugs, sex, all of those things, the reason that they have an addictive tendency is because the amount of dopamine that it gives you when you intake and participate in those substances or acts. You want to be careful to not live searching for dopamine, but you want to be careful not to remove dopamine because your body needs it and your body will find it. A lot of times you find people that have addictive personalities, it's because they don't have healthy ecosystem. So a lot of times they're not getting dopamine from anywhere in a healthy way, the way that God would intend. And so the drug addict, or, for example, goes to drugs because he has some sort of fear, he has some sort of pain, he doesn't have a healthy way. And I'm not even saying healthy medication. If you deal with fear and you're constantly overthinking, you're constantly anxious, and you're constantly allowing that fear just to like push down on you, what you're doing is putting all that weight on your own shoulders. But it's like if you were in community, if you were in church, if you were praying, all of those things will alleviate the pressure that is on you. And it allows you to be able to maintain and continually proceed in life without having to find dopamine to supplement what it should never supplement. And that's the key thing. If you're using a dopamine inducing aspect in order to supplement what God would rather you do in a more healthy and sustainable way through a healthy ecosystem, then you need to remove that for a time and find health. For me, at one season in my life, I lived in the middle of nowhere. It was 30 minutes to the nearest town, and uh, I lived alone. There was a family that I worked with, but I lived in a separate house, but we all worked on the same property. With that, in that season, what I would do intentionally, because it was so lonely at times, is I would just doom scroll. I would intentionally turn on Instagram and I would just scroll. And I'd usually have a movie in the background, and at times I'd find I even have music playing. So music, Instagram, movie, and I would probably be eating while I was doing all those things. On one level, it just seems, oh, he's just doing what he's doing. And most people would see, oh yeah, I could do that. And I'm not trying to be condemning here, but what was happening is that I did not have a healthy ecosystem that allowed me to have the hormonal uh, health that I needed. And so I was supplementing with micro dopamine aspects. So as much as possible. And those things can cause such an unhealthy amount of satisfaction, but it's not in a complete way. So it's like if I'm building a building and I'm a foot short, and instead of going and getting another board, I just take some cardboard and put that piece of cardboard up so that whatever is resting on it can rest on it. It may sustain the overall level, but that's going to collapse when weight comes. So just be careful. Look for the sustainable way for dopamine. So look for ecosystem. Get friends, have a healthy heart, soul, mind, and the rest of your strength, and that will help you be in a good ecosystem. Okay, adrenaline is the next one. So adrenaline is surges during danger, stress, or excitement, increases heart rate, energy, reaction, and speed, heightens awareness and strength temporarily, and then mobilizes the body for immediate action. It's your battle mode, but it's not meant to stay on all the time. Chronic adrenaline is not healthy and it will cause burnout. I know one person who's talked about blowing out their adrenal glands. I believe I've also done the same thing. I'm working 100-hour weeks for 7 weeks in a row, and all of a sudden, while I'm with a bunch of people, having to push myself to be able to do what I've been asked to do, I start tasting copper in my mouth, just because I'm literally running off of adrenaline. And then after that, I was so exhausted I couldn't get out of bed and slept for almost 24 hours straight. Um, with that being said, you want to utilize it for the right reasons, but not run off of it. And I would say the dangers of caffeine here, because caffeine is going to quiet your rest senses. When you are resting, your body's able to restore itself. When you use caffeine so that you can't rest, or excuse me, caffeine will cause you not to be able to sleep. And when you're not able to sleep, you're obviously not able to rest and be restored. So caffeine will cause eventually you to run on adrenaline. That's why caffeine usually has an interaction with your heart rate at some capacity. This is from what I understand. I could be wrong on this. If you're running off of adrenaline all the time, uh, you're going to have a higher anxiety because you're constantly fighting yourself. And that's the same thing with caffeine. Again, I'm not a huge fan of caffeine. I don't know if I said this before. I'm currently not capable of processing caffeine. It hurts to actually intake anything with caffeine. I'm at the level where I can't have chocolate, I can't have grape, I can't have like soda, any of those things. I can't have caffeine. And so, but I think I am significantly healthier because of that lifestyle change, even though it wasn't my choice. Because I can't have caffeine, I feel way more rested. I have way less anxiety. It's because my body's not fighting against itself. So all that to say with adrenaline. And oxytocin, so this is a hormone that promotes trust, empathy, emotional bonding, released during deep conversations, hugs, and physical closeness, strengthens romantic attachment, lowers stress, and promotes calmness. It's the chemistry of connection, loyalty, attachment, and emotional safety, and crucial for future marriage and community. Oxytocin is the kind of love hormone in a sense. And so when you give someone a hug and you feel better after hugging someone, it's because the oxytocin has been released into your body. I want to pause just for a second and talk about why porn is so dangerous. When you watch porn on a hormonal level, on a chemical level, you're receiving oxytocin, adrenaline, and dopamine, at least. And then there's others, but those are the three main ones. So in a moment when you feel like you're out of control and you turn to porn, you're not just looking for love. You're not just looking to look on sex. What you're doing is you're getting a hormonal dump into your body of three things that God has provided for you in the right way. So for anyone who may be dealing with porn, who may have a porn issue, one, you're not alone. 99% of men deal with pornography, and I believe the stats up to like 60 or 50% of women also deal with pornography. It's something I have personally struggled with. Um, the key thing is not just to fight harder and to restrict yourself when you're watching porn, understand that's a red flag. It's a red light. It's warning signs saying you have an unhealthy ecosystem. What God has asked you to do, what God has provided for you, you are not receiving in the right way. And so you're trying to compensate for what you don't have through porn. So think, now that we've talked about these three hormones, if you have, a porn issue, think through, am I trying to receive dopamine? Am I trying to receive oxytocin? Am I trying to receive adrenaline? And figure out ways that you can healthily get that. So if you need dopamine, go work out. If you need dopamine, go hang out with some friends. If you need dopamine, work on a project, a hobby, find something to do. This kind of goes back to Philippians 4, but you have to think about the good things, and it's not just to stop doing bad, but you need to replace that bad with what is good. So keep that in mind. If you need oxytocin, go hug a family member. If you need oxytocin, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, even a nice, like, firm handshake can release oxytocin. Just think about those things. All right, moving on. Serotonin. So this regulates mood, peace, confidence, and emotional steadiness, helps with digestion and sleep, influence, appetite, and memory, and then creates the sense of I'm okay and I belong. It stabilizes your mind. So low serotonin equals low anxiety, irritability, and depression. DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone, it's the really powerful form of testosterone. It drives male characteristics, supports libido and assertiveness, and helps with physical development and competitiveness. It is one of the main essences of masculinity. Men, you should do things to do this. If you lift heavy, you're going to get this. But just be careful. Too much of this has been linked to male pattern baldness, which is terrifying. So just be intentional. Balance is key. Norepinephrine, excuse me. I don't know if I said that right, but works with adrenaline to sharpen focus, helps you stay alert and engaged, drives perseverance, mental toughness, and resilience, regulates attention and ability to handle stress. It's the chemistry of resolve, the ability to stay locked in during challenges. Melatonin, everyone knows this one because everyone likes to take melatonin so they can sleep. It signals your body so that it thinks it's time to sleep. It regulates your internal clock. It helps you deep recover while you're resting, and critical for testosterone production and mental clarity. If you sleep poorly, men, you will have less testosterone. You'll be in a worse mood and slower muscle recovery. So melatonin is important. And try not to rely on physical melatonin. Just take steps to have it done in a healthy ecosystem. So cortisol regulates stress and alertness, affects weight, energy, sleep, influences estrogen and proestrogen balance. High cortisol disrupts every other hormone. So don't be stressed, which I know doesn't help. Some of the ways that you can manage stress, we'll go into that specifically in just a moment. But just kind of keep this in mind. When you manage stress, you're managing your cortisol levels. And then a couple other ones. So estrogen, proestrogen, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin. Those are other ones worth looking up. I'm just not going to get into them because I don't think it's necessary for this discussion. All right, let's move into rest. And so we'll talk about this more with spiritual disciplines, but there is a difference between the spiritual discipline of rest and sleeping. Sleeping does not equal rest. It's not the same thing. When you rest, here are the things that will help you truly rest when you sleep. So your hormones, your nervous system, your rhythm, and your environment. Hormones. So we just went over hormones, all of that stuff. If you have low testosterone, it won't allow you to sleep, for men specifically. And I think that's kind of God's challenge. So if you look at things, let's look at it at a 10,000 foot view and kind of understand what's happening on a hormonal level. If I'm working out all the time, then I'm going to sleep better. And people are like, well, yeah, you're tired. That tired is because your testosterone is causing you to produce melatonin. The more you do what God intended you to do from the beginning, the more primal and the more basic you are, the more your hormones will work the way that they were supposed to work. The further we remove ourselves from And I'm not using primal in the sense of like an evolutionary term. It's just you understand the picture that I'm building. The more primal we are within how we operate, the better our health will be. The less primal we are, the more our hormones will stop working because we're not doing the things that will produce them correctly. If you're a man and you're not sleeping and you're not doing anything, I'm challenging you to do what you can to start getting your testosterone up. And I would challenge you to do it the way God intended through working hard, either physically or doing a workout, whatever that might be. Uh, don't just go get a shot. Do what you can to have the ecosystem, not a temporary fix, because those temporary fixes will always have side effects. And then adenosine, what caffeine blocks. So adenosine is what makes you feel sleepy. Let this build and then you'll have better sleep. People are saying, "Oh, I don't know why I can't sleep." It's like, well, you've had 4 energy drinks. And people will say, "Well, I can still go to sleep even though I've had 4 Red Bulls." And I believe you. I've been there. There was a point where I could essentially fall asleep on command because of how much I was working and how much I was doing. When that's the case, you should not have caffeine, not for the sake of your uh, not able to fall asleep, but it's because you're not able to rest. Your body's fighting itself because it's fighting the hormones that you put in. You're putting caffeine to fight the adenosine, and they're fighting, and you can't rest because you're fighting on the inside level. Your body will exhaustedly sleep, but it won't rest and recover. Okay, let's go to nervous system. So the better your nervous system is, the better you're going to sleep. You want to reach the parasympathetic state, and that's when you rest and digest. So what you can do intentionally beforehand is slow breathe, relax your muscles, slow your heart, and quiet your mind. And hot showers may help. And so really what we're going to do here is just essentially de-stress our bodies. So slow breathing. The act of slow breathing, the reason I believe that God allows us to intentionally breathe and that it's conscious at times is that we can intentionally slow down our breathing so that our bodies start to relax. If you relax your muscles, like there's times where like, you're watching the movie or whatever, and you just like realize you're tight or it's just how you're sitting or whatever. Take a breath and relax your body. Just let it sit. That will help you sleep. Um, Slowed heart. So lower stress and quiet mind. Quiet mind doesn't mean empty mind. It means a controlled mind and you're thinking about good things. So don't try to quiet your mind by emptiness, because I think when you empty your mind, you allow any thought in. What you want to do intentionally is um, put good in your mind, and that will help you rest. And then rhythm. If you can be rhythmic with your health, specifically with your sleep, you will overall be better off. So wake up at the same time every morning, go to sleep at the same time every evening. Try to have morning light exposure. So when you wake up, um, I wake up at 5:30. When you wake up at 5:30, the sun's usually not out, at least not at this time in the year. But try to take time to look at the light. I'm not saying stare at the sun, but just when you're outside, take the moment to look at it. And we'll get into that in a second. Eat scheduled. It's not healthy to eat right before you go to bed. Try to have at least an hour, but if you can consistently eat at 6 and if you consistently go to bed at 9:30, your body will get into a rhythm which will be helpful. Um, Exercise at a specific time, eating and wind down. So I don't believe that we should have the exact same pattern, but we should have rhythms. Um, Rhythms correlate to ecosystems. When you have healthy rhythm and healthy ecosystem, everything flows. I mean, think about music. If you have music that's rhythmic, right? It's enjoyable. Do 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 do. Like, jazz itself is built on the AABA structure. That's the reason that it's so chaotic in its nature is that it breaks the rhythm just a little bit, though. Um, Neither here nor there. The point is, we want to have a consistent structure because just like music, the more rhythmic the music, the more enjoyable it is. The more rhythmic your life, the more enjoyable it is. And then have an evening wind down routine. So at one point, I would read my Bible in the evenings, not in the morning. And so before I would go to bed, I would read a chapter and journal through that chapter. I slept pretty well at that point, and I've actually considered redoing that system. Um, different people will tell you different. I'm sure dermatologists would hate this, but take a shower every night before you go to bed. Um, Use the restroom, brush your teeth, but do it in a type of rhythmic sense, and then that will help. So environment. Try to have a cold room when you sleep. So when you sleep, your body will digest the food that you made. When you digest food, it'll warm your body. So the colder your environment, the more your body will be able to digest in a healthy way. Your body regulates your temperature. And so if you're at 98 degrees and you are in a cold room, you go to sleep, your digestion will warm up, you'll digest faster. If it's 90 degrees in the place you're sleeping, which how awful, uh, uh, and your body will try to reduce heat and you're not going to be able to process food correctly. Have it in a dark area. Try to have no unnatural light if possible. Have it be quiet. Have no screens. Try for sure not to have uh, at least the TV on within an hour of you going to sleep. Um, I do not do this. I'm thinking about it. You should remove the TV from your bedroom. You will sleep better. Um, there's a psychology to the place that you sleep. And if you do anything outside of sleeping in your bedroom, there's a psychology to that, and your brain can't rest. In a perfect state, you would have a room for your bed, and then you would have a room for your life and, your clothing or whatever. Uh, but obviously, we don't do things that way. We could, if you're rich or you're building a house, think about that. Uh, but try to have a room to enjoy time that's just maybe your room. But use the living room. The reason we have living rooms is to live in them. So watch the movies in the living room, go to sleep in the bedroom. Have clean bedding. So uh, honestly, didn't know that was a big deal. I looked into it. Your body puts a bunch of oil out, and the oil and the dead skin, you may not be able to notice it, but your body does. And so that one, you'll have way better skin and you'll be cleaner, less acne. But on top of that, when you feel clean, you sleep better. That's not just my opinion, like psychologically speaking and physically speaking. And then have good airflow. You don't want it to be stuffy. So I like to sleep with my window open, and I usually have a fan pointing from the window. So yeah. Um, all right, let's move into sunshine. Sunshine is super important because it helps a lot of hormones. And so you need to be consistent with seeing sunlight as much as possible. See the sun throughout the day. Your body produces hormones based on it. Melatonin is based out of how your eyes receive sunlight. Vitamin D comes from that, and a couple others. Um, and it'll help your skin be healthy. So, how to do that? Some people, like me, for example, wake up early. There's no sun, and there's times where, uh, I'm inside all day. One, by the grace of God, I have a window, so I try to keep the window open as much as possible and look outside as much as possible, and it'll help your eyes too. Side note. But if that's not the case, park further away from your building. So if there's a spot right next to where you walk in, that's fine and it's quick. But take the time, to smell the roses. But beyond that, uh, your body physically needs to be outside, and especially to feel the sunlight. So park, as far as possible within a real sense, and then take the time to walk into the building. This is for people that are very busy who may not have a lot of time. Um, Be outside, specifically on your Sabbath. Try to be outside, go for a hike, eat outside, barbecue. Like, Sabbaths are supposed to be fun. But beyond that, if you can be outside for the majority of the day, it'll help your health. Spend a moment outside when you get home or before you leave, and then park further. Oh, we already talked about one. Let's talk about stress management. So personally, I am a highly anxious person by nature. Um, Genetically, it's built a little bit into me and even within the nurture state. And that's fine. And there's no condemnation. I just think that for a long time, people didn't understand how to handle stress in a healthy way. Environment is key, and an ecosystem is key. You want to have a healthy ecosystem because a lot of times stress comes from not being able to achieve what your body needs or what the perceived need is. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even though it's not a perfect system, is really helpful because your body craves even the most basic, again, primal aspects and will go out. Your body does need things and you will be stressed if you can't find those things. But ultimately, here's a couple things to remember. Reasonableness is not saying that the problem isn't there. Reasonableness is knowing that God is there in spite of the problem. So if you just see the giant, again, you're going to be stressed out. But if you remember God is with you and that ultimately God is the giant of giants, you're not going to worry about it. And so try to have that understanding in a broader sense. It's not just have faith and don't worry about anything, but it's about being reasonable. So think through, why am I stressed? Well, I don't have any money. Well, one, what are some of the things that I can do? Well, I'm working a lot, so I can't work more. That's not it. And you can kind of think through some practical things, but even if the practical options don't seem to shed any light, understand that even in the moment when everything seems to be falling apart, you have a good father who gives good gifts, and you can be reasonably assured that if you are doing what he has asked you to do, he will provide. Um, I didn't plan on talking about this, but I'm going to. Um, Valiant Guardian has been an amazing opportunity. I've been working my tail off trying to get this going. Uh, I have essentially worked average probably 60 hours every week for the last 4 months, if I remember correctly. Um, I have had minimal donations, and that's okay. Um, I don't do this for money. That's zero my intent. I do it because it's what the Lord has called me to do. And times are tight, and that's the honest truth. But it's incredible to me. Excuse me. It's incredible to me how God has provided at every step. There was a point where I've needed specific things, and people have donated specifically to be able to get them for Valiant Guardian. There's times where I've run low on money personally, uh, and not low as in, oh, my savings took a hit. I have no more savings. Um, Not only am I living paycheck to paycheck, but God has graciously been sustaining me paycheck to paycheck. And I don't get paid from Valiant Guardian, just to be clear. Right now, there's not enough donations, and eventually I would like to be paid. Um, but right now, it's a very tight season where I don't have consistent income coming in, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to find an outside job, and if any of you who watch this know of any part-time where I can still consistently be with Valiant Guardian, I'd love to hear that opportunity. But the Lord has provided time and time and time again, and it's been a very unique season where I've gotten to truly experience a time of little anxiety because the Lord has been in it so faithfully. And I want to challenge you. I don't want to challenge you. I feel like the Lord wants me to say this. It's not about your faith in Christ. It's about the faithfulness of Christ. And so I want you to remember that. It's not about, if I don't believe enough, God's not going to provide for me. It's not about that. It's understanding that God is faithful. It is the nature of who he is. It is an aspect of his Holy Spirit. And the faithfulness of God will never not be faithful. He's always faithful. He's always the same. He's always consistent. And he will always love you, and he will always provide for you. With that being said, my stress, even though, it's crazy things from, something broke in my car. didn't have the money to fix it, got a random opportunity to work, got the money, $12 more than I needed to be able to pay for that one part of my car. And then something else breaks, and then God provides, and so on and so on. It's been nerve-wracking and it's been hard, but God has provided and God is good. And even in the midst of this difficult season, it's incredible because God has helped maintain my stress in a way where I get to sleep every night. I heard this from Ashley Chase. She works at Real Faith. Real Faith's awesome. Go check them out. But uh, I don't know if she came up with it or someone else did, but she said it. She said, "Your ability to rest is a depiction of your faith in the Lord. If you have sleepless nights, you need to have more faith." And it's not saying that to condemn you, but to challenge you. When you are sleeping, if you can't sleep, and it's because you're worried about what tomorrow will bring, start to speak, physically speak, verbally speak. The Lord is good and the Lord will provide. I guarantee you that when you start to believe that message, you will sleep better. Didn't think I was going to get into any of that. I don't know why I did. We're going to move on. Some other physical things that you can do for stress management. Breathing exercises. This personally helps me. Again, not in this season, but in previous seasons, I've really dealt with some significant anxiety. I used to have anxiety attacks. Breathing exercises will help. And when you're stressed, specifically if you get systematically stressed, it's because your neural pathways, I don't know why I'm pointing to the side of my head, it's all over your brain. Your neural pathways, how they route that they take to get from one thing to another. What chronic stress is and what's unhealthy is when you start to have circulating neural pathways. When you have a circling neural pathway, let's say it hits the adrenaline every time it passes. Ding, you have a little bit of adrenaline. But if you have a circular pathway, ding, 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 you're going to start getting into this massive fight or flight mode. And that's where your anxiety attacks come in. When you do breathing exercises, a couple things happen. You bring more oxygen into your body, which puts more oxygen into your blood, which allows you to feel like you're capable of fighting, which, funny enough, relaxes you. Also, it makes your neural pathways fire differently. If you're just thinking in ding, ding, adrenaline, fight, let's go, and you get, excited and ready, your breathing pathways takes part of your brain so that neural pathway can't fire the same way. So all of a sudden you're breathing and it's pulling it out of that circle. So neural pathway, deferring a neural pathway is what will help reduce your stress state. Breathing exercise, I like square breathing personally. So what that is you breathe in for 4 seconds. So 1, then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you let it out for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds, and then start over. I don't know if I did that right, but you get the point. When you do that, also just a tidbit, when you blow out like you're blowing through a straw. So and what that does is it helps keep the oxygen in for a little bit better. It's helpful. That one personally helps me a lot. I get to the point where I can get stressed, where I start to have like tinnitus effects. What I'll do is I'll put music in, like worship music or just something that's beneficial. And then I'll do that square breathing, and when I have those tinnitus moments, it goes away. Cold water in the face. I don't like this one. It's super effective. I just don't like getting wet. But it's super helpful. I was talking with a girl the other day, and she was talking about how you can stick your head in a freezer and you'll get the same effect, but it won't ruin your makeup. So ladies, take that for what it is. I don't know if it works, but I believe her, so go for it. Step outside barefoot. This one is super helpful to me, and even like most of the time, I will not even have to get to outside before it helps. But again, it really messes with your neural pathways, especially if you step outside, because all of a sudden you're getting different smells, you're getting a different physical sensation because of the air or whatever that's outside. And if you touch grass, you're getting another sensation. You're going to get a temperature sensation. All of these different sensations, it rapidly changes you that neural pathway. Change your environment. If you're stressed out in your room, go into the living room, even if there's no one there. It'll help. And then do checklists and do things at a time. So if you're stressed out, you're like, "Oh, I got so much to do." It's possible, but go through, write everything down. One, I need to do this. 2, 3, 4, this. I like the snowball method. Uh, I heard it from Dave Ramsey, and he applied it to debt, but I'm applying it to anxiety. Um, Figure out the easiest thing that you can do, and then systematically go from the easiest to the largest. If you have 10 things to do, and one of them is to like blow your nose, it's like, do that first, get it done. It's like, awesome. Now the second thing I need to do, okay, I need to go to the bathroom. These are obviously silly, but then if the last one is like, okay, I need to go to the other side of town to drop my car off so that it can get fixed. You don't, if you do those simple things of like go to the bathroom or blow your nose, it's like those things will reduce your stress because you don't have to deal with them anymore. So the list helps you see in real time what's necessary, and it's nice to be able to check off the boxes. I heard someone tell me, I don't remember who it was, uh, if you can do something in 5 minutes and it comes to mind, just do it and get it done. You don't let it sit there, which helps reduce anxiety as well. Some other things, sleeping well will reduce stress. Strength training, physical strength training will reduce stress. It helps your body be able to take in better. Protein will, so eat some meat if you're stressed out. So have a steak. Magnesium and hydration. Have you drank any water today? Um, some other things. This one has helped me a lot. Journaling. A lot of times when you feel heavy, when you have a heavy season, there's just a lot going on in the moment. When you have all the things going on around you, and it seems like there's just a lot, it's overwhelming, start to write it down and just list it. People use prompts or whatever, those are all fine. But just think about those things. That'll help with journaling. Verbal process, talk it out. Even if you have no one that listens, talk to yourself. Psychologically speaking, it works. Name your emotions. If people are like, "Oh, I have a bad day," I get it. I've had a lot of bad days. But if you can verbalize what it is that's bad, it'll help keep, the cosmic darkness that seems to be dreadful and overwhelming. And if you can name it sadness, it goes from the dreadful darkness. Anxiety and stress, all of that I think is a type of darkness, and it's overwhelming, and it's all these things. But why would you run from the person who is in control of everything? Run to him, not from him. Say stop. So this is one that also really helps me. Uh, Naming the emotions is not something I do very often. I don't necessarily benefit from that. It is very helpful for other people. There are certain ones that specifically help me. So journaling is really helpful. Being God's presence is very helpful. And then saying stop is really helpful. So there's times where even neuropathways, again, stressed out, or even if it's negative thoughts. So if it's unhealthy, sinful thoughts in whatever capacity, saying stop, like even just the intensity, like, uh, you know, if I'm talking to someone and they're not paying attention, I clap at them, like all, what, uh, that works for yourself. So, if oh man, I'm just having a hard time and nothing works out and no one likes me, stop. Like just that constant instantaneous will mess with your brain in a good way where your neural pathways won't respond. And then sing music. Singing has so much impact on your brain. It'll make a huge difference. And then finally, we're fashion, your appearance. We were talking about physicality. I think we're going to do a specific virtue lesson on fashion and being kempt, actually. But overall, you need to dress well and you need to present yourself well. If you're um, if you are unkempt, if you don't smell good, you don't look good, those things will cause you to not feel good, and you can't honor the Lord with the presentation of yourself if it's disgusting. But yeah, we'll get into that more in the virtue lesson, so stay tuned. So we come to the end of the lesson. Hope you've stayed for the whole thing. I appreciate everyone who listens to the entirety of it. I just want to say the final thing. If you want to support Valiant Guardian, we will absolutely take it. And here are the ways that you can support. So send your testimonies in. Every single time someone sends a message, every time there's a DM or a comment that says thank you or I appreciate it, it helps assure me personally, and I don't do it for those reasons. I do it because the Lord's told me to, but it's encouraging. And, I believe that we should be encouraging. So definitely do that. Every testimony is just a blessing. And I think it's an aspect of the gospel. The second thing you can do is donate. If you donate, it goes directly to allowing more content to happen. We're still in the process of buying different materials for the office and for the studio. But also the more donations we have, the more people that we are able to have full-time or even part-time on the team. If you send in your questions, that would be super helpful. If you have questions and you send those in, it'll help me understand where kind of everyone wants to go as a whole in terms of talking about theology or virtue or whatever. And then finally, if you have a funny video, an outstanding video, a video that made you mad or triggered you or whatever, send those in. We'd love to react to them. The team and I will look at them and see if they're worth putting out for everybody or just specifically for you. If you want, you can DM us on all the platforms that we have. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, obviously. And then you can email your questions at valiantguardianproject@gmail.com. And we're so close to being done with the website. I'm not going to announce the title of it yet. It's almost there. So stay tuned. The website's almost done. Let me pray and then we'll close. Dear Lord, I pray that you would allow us to honor you with our bodies. I pray that you give us the Holy Spirit, that you would empower us to do so. I pray that you would help men to be bold and courageous and full of your Holy Spirit so that they can be strong. And I pray that women would be able to be, strong as well, that they would be able to serve you. I pray that you would help us to rely on you for a healthy ecosystem and that we would not allow stress to rule and manage our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless.